There is no perfectly flat path in this life. Everyone must navigate their own winding roads. Some stumble in their careers, others get lost in their emotions, and some grow weary amidst the daily grind of making a living. But do you know, those twists and turns are not meant to defeat us, but rather are opportunities to cultivate resilience. When life throws us into a deep pit, remember that within that very suffering lies a hidden strength, waiting to be awakened. Even if you cried until your tears ran dry last night, when the sun rises, the city is still bustling with people and traffic. Life continues to flow, and you still have to move forward. So don't let the dark nights linger in your mind. Trust that every difficulty will pass. Every tomorrow will be a new day. When you are sad and suffering, remember that suffering is not to be run from, but to understand yourself. Try observing the grass beneath your feet, the flowers by the roadside, or the leaves on a branch. Though small, they still reach for the sun, quietly living beautiful lives. Humans are the same. As long as there is a breath, there is an opportunity to change, to live differently, to smile, and to be grateful for life. When no one is there to worry about you, you must learn to comfort yourself even more. When no one cheers you on, learn to soar on your own. When no one is watching, still live kindly and honorably, because you deserve to be treated with respect. Many people think the problem lies with their job, circumstances, or other people. But in reality, the thing most in need of healing is your own mind. When your mind is at peace, your surroundings are also peaceful. When your mind is clear, suffering also becomes light. The Buddha taught that suffering is the gateway to wisdom. For without suffering, people would never bother to look deep within, never realize what they need to change about themselves. Therefore, do not despise suffering. See suffering as a friend who comes to remind us that we have gone too fast, taken on too much, or forgotten ourselves. Sometimes, suffering comes just for us to stop, to breathe, to listen to the tired voice within that longs for rest. In such moments, sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and tell yourself, I am okay. I am still alive. I am still learning how to navigate this life with a peaceful mind. Suffering is not an enemy, but a teacher that guides us to peace. We only need to listen, for if we never stumbled, we would never know how strong we truly are. If we never had lonely days, we would never learn how to be alone and still feel complete. And if we never shed tears, we would never truly appreciate a smile. In this life, everyone will at some point feel lost amidst the winds and storms. But do not be afraid. Let suffering harden us into maturity. Let sorrow forge our resolve. Then you will see that everything you once resented, everything you complained about, was in fact a gift wrapped in adversity. But within it lies the light of wisdom and peace. So when suffering comes, don't ask, why me? But rather say, thank you for this lesson. When your heart aches, don't blame life, but look back at yourself to see if you have held too many expectations, clung too tightly, or forgotten something important. Let go, breathe, and trust that at the deepest point of suffering, there is always a seed of happiness waiting to blossom. There are days when we wake up with a heart as heavy as stone. The whole world outside is noisy, but inside we feel empty and hollow. An unanswered message, a broken plan, or an unexpected silence can be enough to make our hearts tremble. People often say, life is a storm, but how many truly learn to stay calm amidst that storm? When suffering arrives, most of us want to avoid it, to run away, to hide in a dark corner and pretend we're fine. Yet, no matter how long we hide, the rain still falls, the winds still blow, and life continues. In such moments, the teaching, if no one cheers you on, you must fly on your own, suddenly becomes profoundly meaningful. Because no one will always be by our side to motivate, comfort, or wipe away our tears. Just as when the rain falls, everyone seeks shelter. Only we must shield ourselves. Life is like that. Everyone has their own worries, their own burdens, and cannot always stop for our sadness. Therefore, the most precious thing is not having someone close by, but being able to stand firm in the storm with our own inner strength. One morning, the rain was pouring down, and the road at the end of the alley seemed swallowed by murky water. People huddled and ran, seeking shelter under eaves. But at the end of that small alley, an old woman still sat silently beside her steaming pot of sticky rice. This was Mrs. Hong, a familiar sticky rice vendor to the whole neighborhood. Her hair was white, her figure small, and her hands trembled as she wrapped each portion of hot sticky rice. A passerby stopped and asked, "With weather like this, why don't you rest? Who would buy anything?" She just smiled, her voice light as the wind. "Food and clothes don't wait for the sun to rise, but my heart can be warm if I know peace in the rain." The questioner fell silent. The rain continued to fall, but amidst that cold scene, her smile was as warm as sunshine. A pot of sticky rice, a peaceful mind, a single sentence, enough to make us reflect on many things. Peace, in fact, does not come from avoiding the rain, but from knowing how to smile in the midst of it. A person who accepts, despite the cold wind, still has a warm heart. A person who is at peace, even while waiting for change, still feels complete. The Buddha once taught that all suffering arises from a restless mind. The root of our troubles is not the circumstance, but how we face the circumstance. When the mind is agitated, even a peaceful scene feels unsettling. When the mind is at peace, even amidst a storm, it feels light. That's why learning Buddhism is not about escaping life, but about living amidst life with a calm heart. Try sitting still for a moment, taking a deep breath, and feeling your breath go in and out. Breathing in, you know you are breathing in. Breathing out, you know you are breathing out. Relax your shoulders, relax your whole body, and quietly tell yourself, "I am here. I am breathing. I am complete in this moment." Life never stops challenging us. Sometimes it's a major event. Sometimes it's just a hurtful word. But if each time this happens, we know how to stop, breathe deeply, and return to our breath, we will not be swept away by the waves of emotion. The storm outside cannot extinguish the bright lamp in your heart. Someone asked, "How can one be peaceful amidst chaos?" The answer is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not meditating in silence, but maintaining an awakened mind in every small action. When eating, know you are eating. When walking, know you are walking. When sad, know you are sad. When in pain, know you are in pain. Only when we are aware does sadness stop. It does not turn into hatred or despair. A friend once told me she used to be very afraid of loneliness. Whenever she was sad, she would quickly find someone to talk to or throw herself into work to forget. But the more she ran, the greater her sadness became, until she began to learn how to sit still, without music, without her phone, just listening to her own breath. She realized something miraculous. Sadness was no longer frightening. It was just a cloud passing across the sky of her consciousness, coming and going, not staying forever. The Buddha taught that no one can save us but ourselves. No one can walk our path for us but ourselves. When we understand this, we stop wishing others would change, stop blaming, stop waiting. We only focus on how to become brighter, kinder, more peaceful each day. Then, even if the outside world remains chaotic, within us there will be a zone of peace to rely on. In the storms of life, remember that no one can help us forever. Our loved ones will also get tired. Our friends will also have their own affairs. The only arm that can lift us up after every fall is our own arm. Be grateful to those who have helped, but also learn to stand up on your own. For if we only wait for others to protect us, one day, when they leave, we will collapse. Learn from Mrs. Hong how to smile in the rain. Do not be happy only when circumstances are favorable, and not sad when they are difficult. Because life is impermanent. The sun will set. The rain will stop. What matters is that in every moment, we maintain a calm mind. Amidst the sound of falling rain, still be grateful for having a roof over our heads. Amidst loneliness, still smile because we are still alive. When we no longer demand that life be peaceful, that is when our heart finds peace. When we no longer want someone to understand us, that is when we truly understand ourselves. When we no longer seek happiness outside, happiness is present right in this breath. A person who practices the way does not become cold and distant, but learns to love without suffering, to give without expecting return, to live amidst life and still feel light. When our mind is sufficiently at peace, the storms outside are just the music of heaven and earth, no longer a disaster. Practice looking at everything with eyes of compassion. The person who is rude to us may be suffering. The person who betrays us may not have enough wisdom to live sincerely. The person who leaves us may have simply reached the end of their karmic connection. When we understand this, we no longer resent anyone, no longer blame anyone. We just quietly smile and thank those who have taught us lessons of patience and tolerance. One day, when you look back, you will see that all the hurts that once brought us down were necessary for us to grow. Every scar is a mark of maturity. Every failure is a lesson in humility. And every time we are abandoned is an opportunity to find ourselves again. Remember that peace is not the absence of storms, but knowing how to stand firm in the midst of them. Just as a lake, despite the wind, still reflects the blue sky. A human heart, despite pain, can still hold the light of compassion. Therefore, if today you are going through stormy days, do not be quick to blame life. Stop, breathe deeply, and tell your heart, I am alive. I am learning to be at peace. Let the tears flow if needed, but then wipe them dry, lift your head, and keep going. Because even if no one cheers you on, you can still fly on your own. No one helps you forever, but you can still save yourself. Life is a journey back to oneself. Each time a storm passes, the heart becomes stronger. Each time suffering comes, the mind becomes clearer. One day, you will sit in silence, watching the rain fall outside your porch, and smile. At that moment, you will understand that true peace lies not out there, but deep within your own mind, a place untouched by wind or rain. There are days when our hearts feel strangely weary. Everything seems to pile up, weighing heavily on these small shoulders. Work isn't going well, relationships aren't complete. Loved ones misunderstand, friends grow distant. We want to let go, but fear losing, fear loneliness, fear being seen as weak. We cling to a relationship that has grown cold. We try to hold on to an opportunity that has closed. We refuse to leave a past that has turned to dust. But the more we hold on, the more the heart aches. The tighter we grasp, the more our hands bleed. Humans are strange. We often only let go when we are in too much pain. Often only leave when there's nothing left to hold on to. There is a beautiful saying. Before, I thought persistence made me strong. Growing up, I understood that letting go truly makes one steadfast. When we were young, we believed that clinging tightly to everything would keep happiness. But as we mature, we realize that many things must leave for us to live lightheartedly. Some suffering does not come from outside, but from our own mind's unwillingness to let go. In ancient times, the Buddha also taught that the root of suffering is clinging. We cling to this body as me, to that person as mine, to fame, status, and possessions. When we lose them, we suffer so much we feel we cannot breathe. But ask yourself, is there anything in this world that does not change? Everything is impermanent. It comes and goes like a passing breeze. Nothing belongs to us forever. Even this body. On the day we are born, our hands are clenched as if wanting to grasp the whole world. But when we close our eyes, those hands release. Our entire life journey goes from grasping to letting go. Yet, how many realize that only when we let go can we truly be free? Ken Fat, Phap Lin Ung, channel of responsive Buddhist teachings, wants to tell you a simple story that holds a profound lesson about cause and condition, karma. It's the story of Mrs. Lan, a retired teacher, and her former student, Hung. More than 20 years ago, Mrs. Lan was a literature teacher in a village school. Back then, she was strict, but kind. In her class, there was a thin, quiet student named Hung, from a poor family. Once, Hung considered dropping out because he couldn't afford tuition. Mrs. Lan learned of this and quietly used her own money to pay for him. But she didn't tell him. She just said, "Just study hard, and life will repay you in other ways." Years passed, and Mrs. Lan retired. Old age sometimes brought her feelings of emptiness and loneliness. One afternoon, as she sat on her porch, a man in a suit stepped out of a car holding a bouquet of flowers. He bowed and greeted her. "Hello, teacher. Do you remember me?" She looked at him bewildered, then burst into tears as she recognized the familiar face. It was Hung, the poor student from years ago. Now Hung was the director of a construction company, and he had returned to visit the teacher who had helped him in his most difficult days. He said, "Teacher, you sowed a good seed in me. Today, I am simply repaying that good fruit." Mrs. Lan was silent, her eyes filled with tears. In that moment, she understood that life is never random. Everything is cause and condition. The seeds of kindness and sincere help that we sow today may sprout many years later. And when they blossom, they warm our hearts as if embraced by the universe. Every encounter has a cause. Every separation has meaning. And everything we do, no matter how small, is a seed silently germinating in the endless flow of cause and condition. If we understand this, we will no longer complain when someone leaves. We will be grateful that they once came. When someone hurts us, we learn to look deeply to see that it is also a condition that helps us grow. When a door closes, we do not suffer from loss, but know that that karmic connection has completed its cycle and must close for a new one to open. The more we understand cause and condition, the less anger we feel. The more we understand cause and effect, the more compassion we feel. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught that all phenomena arise from causes and conditions, and all phenomena cease due to causes and conditions. This means that nothing exists independently. All things, all people, all events rely on each other to come into being. Understanding this, we will be less inclined to contend, less inclined to control. We will live more lightly, because we know that when the conditions are ripe, flowers bloom by themselves. When the conditions dissipate, flowers wither by themselves. No need to force anything. Once, a woman came to a Zen master and complained, "I am suffering because my husband left me. I cannot accept it." The Zen master smiled and asked, "When it rains, do you suffer because of the rain?" She replied, "No, because I know the rain will stop." The Zen master gently said, "Well, your suffering is the same. When the connection ends, people leave. When the connection is sufficient, people stay. No one can hold water in their hands, but everyone can learn to face the rain with a peaceful heart." The woman burst into tears, realizing that her suffering was not due to loss, but due to not understanding karmic connections. In this life, some people come to teach us lessons about love. Some come to teach us lessons about hurt. Some come only to help us discover ourselves. Each person is a karmic connection. If we are grateful, we will see that everyone who has passed through our lives is a teacher. They bring us joy. They bring us pain. They help us understand the human heart. And most importantly, they give us opportunities to grow. The Buddha taught, "As the seed, so the fruit." When we sow good seeds, however small, like a smile, a greeting, or an act of helping others, good results will come. When we sow seeds of anger and resentment, suffering will also find its way back to us. It's not because someone is punishing us, but because it is a natural law. Just as when we throw a stone into water, ripples spread out. Whatever energy we send out, the universe will reflect that energy back. Therefore, living with an understanding of cause and effect means living responsibly, with every word, every action, every thought. And when we understand cause and condition, we know that everything has its time. No need to rush, no need to fear. In moments of sadness and suffering, remember that suffering is also a condition. For without suffering, we would not know what peace is. Without failure, we would not appreciate success. Without separation, we would not know the value of meeting. Impermanence and cause and condition are two sides of the same flow. When we understand impermanence, we cherish the present. When we understand cause and condition, we cherish all that we have. Someone once asked me why good people sometimes still encounter bad things. I said it's because cause and effect are not just calculated within one lifetime. Some fruits we reap today are from seeds we sowed long ago. Some seeds we sow today may bear fruit in the lives of our children and grandchildren. Therefore, the important thing is not to compare gains and losses in the present, but to keep our mind wholesome, because that is the only way for good connections to arise. The Buddha taught that when good causes and conditions are sufficient, good results naturally occur. Our task is only to sow the right seeds, to live according to the right path, and let the conditions unfold naturally. I know that in this life, there are things we cannot immediately understand. There are people who come and go, causing us pain. There are losses that make us linger. But after all, when we look back, we realize that thanks to these things, we have changed. We have learned to love, to be patient, to live with more compassion. At that point, we understand that nothing is meaningless. Life is not random. We just haven't seen the deep meaning hidden within those causes and conditions. When we understand cause and condition, we will speak fewer words of resentment, because blaming others is also blaming ourselves. Everything that comes to us has a part of our own cause in it. The person who hurts us may be someone we hurt in a previous life. The person who helps us may be someone we extended kindness to in some lifetime. So instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What do I need to learn from this?" When the mind is open to learning, suffering lightens. Resentment turns to compassion. In every breath, we can practice understanding cause and condition and living mindfully. Breathe in, knowing you are living in the miraculous cause and condition of the present. Breathe out, smiling and grateful for what you have. Every person we meet, every event that happens, is a condition for our awakening. Every hurt is a reminder to return to the mind, not to find fault in others. When we live this way, our heart is at peace, even if life changes. Karmic connections are like the wind, unseen but felt. Some people pass through our lives, leaving only a fleeting fragrance, but enough to make our hearts remember forever. Some people walk with us for a while, then turn in another direction. If we understand karmic connections, we will not hold on, will not resent, but only smile and wish them well. Because we know that everyone has their own journey, and when the connection is complete, they will meet again in another form, another life, or in the peace of their own mind. Let those who come be welcomed, and those who go be seen off. Let go of what does not belong to you. Do not try to hold on. Do not resist. Just breathe lightly and trust that everything happens at the right time with the right conditions. Then, even if life still has suffering, we will no longer be swept away. We stand in the current of life, still at peace, like a calm lake, because we understand that water flows, waves rise, but the heart of the lake remains clear. The more we understand karmic connections, the less anger we feel. The more we understand cause and effect, the more compassion we feel. Compassion for those who have caused us suffering, because they too are guided by karma. Compassion for ourselves, because we too have made mistakes. Compassion for life, because amidst so many changes, it is still quietly teaching us lessons about letting go, about acceptance, about love. When you feel your heart heavy, when you encounter sadness, sit still for a moment, close your eyes, and quietly say, "Everything is due to cause and condition. When the conditions are sufficient, I meet. When the conditions end, I let go." Say this a few times, and you will feel your heart lighten. Because suffering is not due to loss, but due to our unwillingness to accept that the connection has ended. A flower cannot bloom forever, but its fragrance will linger in the wind. Those who leave are not lost. They merely change form, change roles, continuing their own journey. Life is essentially a flow of causes and conditions. Whom we meet, what we do, what we experience. It's all to learn to love more deeply, to understand more clearly, to live more lightly. And when we truly understand that, we will know that nothing is accidental. Everything is at the right time, in the right place, with the right people. There are some afternoons when we see ourselves amidst the hustle and bustle of life, our hearts heavy, with an unnamed weariness. Weary from constantly striving, from trying to outdo others, from endlessly chasing things that are never enough. Life seems like a long race with no finish line. People imagine that just a little more money, a little more fame, a little more affection, a little more attention will make them happier. But then, when they achieve it, their hearts feel empty again. The feeling of enough seems to recede even further. Is it possible that we're forgetting that people don't suffer from lacking, but from not knowing what's enough? In Buddhism, knowing what's enough is called tri-tuk, meaning realizing that what you have is just right. When you know what's enough, your mind is naturally at peace. When you are greedy, your mind naturally suffers. People often think that tri-tuk is complacency, stopping amidst life's upward striving. But no, tri-tuk is wisdom. Knowing what's enough is not about not progressing, but about not being driven by greed, about understanding that everything is impermanent. What is here today may be gone tomorrow. It's knowing that happiness doesn't come from having a lot, but from finding peace in small things. I once heard a story about Mr. Sao, a ferryman who lived in the Mekong Delta by a gentle river flowing through his village. The story was so simple that if you only heard it briefly, you might think it was nothing special. But the more you thought about it, the more you saw in it a way of life as light as the river wind, as the sound of oars stroking the water in the twilight. Mr. Sao lived in a small wooden house by the ferry landing. The roof was old. The wooden walls sometimes had thin cracks of light like threads. Every morning, he woke up early, started a fire, brewed a pot of tea, then went to the river to ferry passengers across. People affectionately called him Old Man Sao the Ferryman. Everyone knew him, everyone liked him, because he was kind, cheerful, and never complained. One afternoon, when the sun was scorching the river's surface, a city dweller hired his ferry to cross to the other side. The man looked around, saw the old house, the worn wooden boat, and asked, "Mr. Sao, don't you get bored living like this? This life is too hard. Why don't you try to make more money? Change your life a bit." Mr. Sao smiled, his eyes squinting against the sun. He spoke slowly, his voice like the river wind. "I am poor in money, but I am rich in sunsets, river winds, and the laughter of my wife and children. Every day I have work to do, people to love, a hot meal, and peaceful sleep. That is enough, sir." The guest was silent. Mr. Sao added gently, as if reciting a poem. "Some people have tall houses and grand gates, but no one waits for them for dinner. Some people drive luxury cars, but their hearts are always afraid of losing. As for me, I have this ferry, this river, this landing, and laughter. What am I missing? What is there to be sad about?" Mr. Sao's answer made the guest bow his head. In that moment, the city man suddenly felt much poorer than the poor ferryman. Because Mr. Sao had peace, something money cannot buy. When we know what's enough, everything becomes lighter. A simple meal tastes delicious. A small house feels warm. The sound of the wind through the door feels like a gentle melody. A person who practices tri-tuk is someone whose heart is never hungry. The Buddha once taught that one who knows what is enough, though lying on the ground, still feels peaceful. One who does not know what is enough, though in heaven, will never be content. That teaching is simple, yet profound, because enough or not enough is not external, but lies within our own minds. We suffer because we constantly look up at people who have more than us, then compare ourselves and feel sorry for ourselves. We forget that each person has their own karmic connections, their own path. If we keep looking outward, we will never see the joy blossoming in our own lives. Some people have everything, but still feel lonely because they cannot appreciate the value of the present. Some people have nothing in their hands, but find life full of flowers because they know gratitude. Gratitude is the root of tri-tuk. When gratitude blossoms, ambition naturally settles down. Looking at Mr. Sao, I understood that living lightly is not about living little, but about living deeply. He lived with few desires, so his mind was expansive. He lived with few expectations, so his mind was at peace. While others were engrossed in chasing what they could get, he freely enjoyed what he had. Have we ever stopped to look at our hands, still whole and healthy? At our parents, still by our side? At our home, however small, still sheltering us from sun and rain? At a meal, though simple, filled with laughter? Are all these things not enough already? Living lightly is about being grateful for small things, about releasing the burden of comparing ourselves to others. It is about knowing how to smile at what we have. A person who does not know what is enough, even if they have the whole world, will still feel a small corner missing. A person who knows what is enough, even if they only have a small corner, will feel like they have the whole world in their heart. Tri-tuk is a simple kind of happiness that people often forget because we are swept away by the noise of society. Must have more, must be better than others. These musts gradually make us forget something important. We already have enough to be happy. I remember once a young nephew asked me, "Auntie, "Why are all adults so busy?" I laughed and asked back, "Are you busy?" He said, "No, I just play." I suddenly thought, maybe we adults lose our innocence because we forget how to just play with life. We forget how to enjoy every breath, every flower, every meal. We keep thinking happiness comes from achieving something grand, forgetting that knowing how to smile is already happiness. When we know what's enough, we stop competing, stop complaining. We become more compassionate, more capable of letting go. People who practice tri-tuk are not easily hurt because they do not cling. They are like a leaf drifting on the current, gentle yet at peace. Life is short. Who knows what tomorrow holds? Some are here in the morning and gone by evening. Some are laughing today and lying silent tomorrow. If we keep waiting until we have enough to be happy, we may never be happy. Learn to be happy right in this present moment. The Buddha taught that a mind that knows enough is an inexhaustible treasure. Indeed, for one who practices tri-tuk is no longer dependent on external things. Though everything changes, their heart remains at peace. They do not need much to feel happy, because happiness is already within them. If one day you feel weary of life, remember the image of Mr. Sao by the riverbank. Imagine him sitting on his bamboo chair, sipping hot tea, gazing at the crimson sunset across the river. The laughter of his wife, the calls of his children echoing in the wind. He watches the water flow, his heart light as kitchen smoke. That is the image of a person who knows how to live lightly. A person who does not chase after life, but lives in harmony with it. Try to practice like him. Every morning when you wake up, instead of thinking about what you have to do, think about what you are grateful for. Grateful for a new day. Grateful for another breath. Grateful for another opportunity to love. When your heart is full of gratitude, everything else naturally becomes small. Knowing enough does not mean abandoning dreams, but when you dream, you don't forget to smile at the present. It's when you want to ascend, you still maintain a peaceful heart. It's progressing while knowing when to stop and breathe. A person of tri-tuk lives like someone walking in a forest, knowing how to choose a flower without plucking the whole branch. They stop at the beautiful spot without needing to possess it. They enjoy without attachment. They love without binding. They act without expectation. One afternoon, Mr. Sao ferried a young couple. The husband complained, "This life is so exhausting. We work so hard, but still can't buy a house or a car." Mr. Sao just smiled gently and said, "Sir, you have a loving wife, good health, strong hands, and the sun rises every morning. Isn't that enough?" The husband fell silent. They watched Mr. Sao paddle his boat, each stroke falling into the water like the rhythm of time, neither fast nor slow, just enough. That is the art of living lightly, living just enough, breathing just enough, being happy just enough. When we stop at just enough, life naturally harmonizes. Salt in a glass is salty. Salt in a lake is diluted. Troubles in a constricted mind bring suffering. In an expansive mind, they bring peace. When we know how to open our hearts, how to let go of what is unnecessary, suffering naturally dissipates. There are days when we just need to sit still, breathe deeply, and tell ourselves, "I have enough. Not enough money, enough fame, but enough to be at peace, enough to smile, enough to love, enough to live fully for one day. When we know what's enough, the mind is as calm as a placid lake, without waves or wind, reflecting only the clear sky. All suffering and worries melt away from there. Life truly doesn't need too much. A small home, someone to love, work to do, a dream to live for. That is enough. And when someone asks us, "Are you happy?" we can smile like Mr. Sao and say, "I am poor in money, but rich in sunsets, river winds, and the laughter of those I love." At that moment, we will understand that knowing enough is not having less, but having more. More peace, more gratitude, more moments of truly living. Remember, not everyone with more wealth than us is happier than us. And it's not that we are less fortunate because we have less than others. Life is fair in its own way. Each person has their own blessings, connections, and karma. What is needed is for us to appreciate our own share. A light-hearted life is one without comparison, without contention, without grasping. It is a life where every morning we can still say thank you. Every evening we can still sleep peacefully. Sometimes peace is not far away, but right in this moment as we sit here, listening to the wind rustling through the eaves, taking a deep breath and realizing, I am still alive. If today you are sad and suffering, try to remember this saying. When you know enough, the mind is naturally at peace. When you are greedy, the mind naturally suffers. Then breathe deeply and smile, because the moment you realize that, you have already begun to live lightly. There are days when a person's heart feels weary for no grand reason. Just a thoughtless word, a disapproving glance, a small misunderstanding can be enough to hurt us. We carry a lingering sadness in our hearts, wanting to forget it, yet unable to. In life, few people have never been hurt by someone. Some hurt us with words, some sadden us with actions, and some disappoint us with mere silence. If we don't know how to see and how to let go of this suffering, it will weigh heavily on our hearts, tormenting us endlessly. But the Buddha taught that suffering does not come to make us collapse, but to teach us how to stand up. The person who hurts us is actually the teacher who teaches us patience, teaches us tolerance, teaches us how to love more deeply. Life is inherently uneven. Everyone carries their own stories, their own wounds. Some, having been hurt, unknowingly hurt others. Some make mistakes due to a lack of understanding. If we cling to grievances, if we harbor hatred, in the end, we are the ones who imprison ourselves in suffering. Anger is like a fire that burns everything. But first, it consumes our own peace of mind. The Buddha once said, holding on to hatred is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. The person who gets burned first is you. Therefore, when your heart fills with anger, stop, breathe deeply, and remember that forgiveness is not for them, but for you to find peace. Long ago, there was a woman named Lean who lived in a small alley with her husband and 2 children. Her life was simple. She sold goods in the morning, cleaned in the afternoon, and helped her children with homework in the evening. Next door lived Mrs. Tu, an older widow who lived alone. For some unknown reason, Mrs. Tu was always unpleasant to Mrs. Lian. Even over small matters, she would find an excuse to argue and speak harshly. Once, she even badmouthed Mrs. Lien to the neighbors, causing Mrs. Lien great hurt and sadness. Many people advised her, "Why do you put up with it? You should talk back and teach her a lesson." But Mrs. Lien just shook her head. "If I talk back, will she be happy? Will I be happy? What's the point of arguing? It will only make us both suffer more." So, every day, Mrs. Lien would greet Mrs. Tu, even though Mrs. Tu rarely replied. Sometimes, she even brought Mrs. Tu some fruit or cakes. Mrs. Tu would frown and say, "I don't need them." Mrs. Lien would just smile. "It's okay. I'm just offering them to make you happy." Time passed. One day, Mrs. Tu fell ill. The neighbors heard the news, but no one dared to approach her. Partly because she was difficult, partly because no one wanted to get involved. Only Mrs. Lien brought her porridge in the morning and medicine in the evening. When Mrs. Tu finally opened her eyes and saw Mrs. Lien sitting by her bed, she burst into tears. "I treated you so badly, yet you still show me kindness." Mrs. Lien just smiled gently. "Everyone has difficult times. I just thought if I were suffering and someone came to help, it would surely warm my heart. So I just did it." Mrs. Tu cried a lot. From that day on, she completely changed her demeanor. Every morning, she greeted Mrs. Lien, and every afternoon, she would wait for Mrs. Lien's youngest child to come home from school to give them candy. The small alley that used to be noisy was now filled with laughter. When one knows compassion, the heart becomes as vast as the ocean. The ocean doesn't choose which rivers are clear or murky, does it? The ocean embraces all, which is why it is boundless. A person who knows how to embrace, who knows how to hold many unpleasant things and resentments, sees them gradually dissolve within their heart, leaving behind the cool calm of compassion. People often say that forgiving others is liberating oneself. But how many truly understand this deeply? Forgiveness does not mean forgetting everything, but accepting that everything has passed and we no longer want to suffer because of it. When we forgive, we open the door of our heart to let fresh winds blow and new sunshine shine in. In Buddhist teachings, compassion, to be, is the root of happiness. Tun means to give joy. Bhikkhu means to relieve suffering. Compassion is not only for those we love, but also for those we once disliked. For only when the heart no longer discriminates between love and hate, affection and resentment, can we truly be at peace. The Buddha once said, "Hate is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased." If we repay hatred with hatred, this life will never find an end point. Those with tolerance are not weak, they're strong, because it takes immense inner strength to smile in the face of hurtful words. Only when the mind is broad enough can it make room for the mistakes of others. Try to think differently for once. The person who hurts you is also suffering in their own way. They might be lonely, misunderstood, or simply haven't learned how to love. When we understand this, our hearts naturally soften. Anger dissipates, making way for empathy. And it is in that empathy that we become truly free. Life is a mirror. When we are angry, we see the world as full of anger-inducing things. When we carry compassion, we see the world suddenly become gentle. A tolerant person is not someone who doesn't see mistakes, but someone who chooses not to dwell on them. They look further, look deeper, to see that behind every action lies a hidden suffering, a story. If one day someone hurts you, instead of asking, "Why did they do that to me?" try asking, "How much suffering did they experience to do that to me?" That question won't make the pain disappear immediately, but it helps us look at everything through the light of understanding. And understanding is the first step towards compassion. I once heard a Zen master say that a person with compassion is not someone who has never been hurt, but someone who transforms pain into empathy. Indeed, if pain is transmuted, it becomes light. Just like a lotus flower growing from mud, the dirtier the place, the more fragrant it becomes. In life, we need to practice like Mrs. Lion. Practice smiling at things that displease us. Practice sending a greeting, even if we know it might not be returned. Practice looking at others with understanding and compassion. Don't be afraid of being seen as weak, because a gentle person is not someone who doesn't feel angry, but someone who knows how to transform anger. If someone insults you, don't rush to retaliate. Be silent for a moment. Take a deep breath and look at the anger as if looking at a crying child. Embrace it, understand it, and say, "I know you are suffering. This anger will pass," leaving a peaceful heart. The Buddha taught, "No one can hurt us unless we allow it." This statement sounds hard to believe, but is profoundly true. Because suffering does not lie in the actions of others, but in how we react. To the same criticism, one person hears it and smiles, another hears it and gets angry. In the same situation, one person remains calm, another suffers. So where does suffering come from? It comes from our own mind. Remember that the person who makes us angry may have come to help us cultivate patience. The person who makes us sad may have come to teach us to love more deeply. The person who disappoints us may have come to remind us that happiness is not found externally. When we understand this, no one is truly an enemy. There's a saying I really like. The ocean becomes jua because it embraces 100 rivers. Humans are the same. Our hearts become boundless when we know how to embrace. If we only accept those who are like us, only love those who treat us well, our hearts will always remain narrow. But if we learn to love even those who have hurt us, our hearts will open up like the ocean. When our hearts are vast, we see life soften. When our minds are kind, we see everyone as more endearing. When we stop being critical and stop blaming, we begin to see everything around us smiling. If everyone learned a little compassion, a little tolerance, how much less suffering there would be in this world. Because anyone can make mistakes. Anyone can change. When we forgive others, we are sowing a good seed for ourselves. And when a good seed is sown, joy and peace will surely come. Some wounds don't need to be forgotten. They just need time and compassion to heal. One day, when you look back, you will only smile, understanding that everything happened for a reason. Sometimes they came just to teach us a lesson in patience, and then left. When we understand this, all anger and resentment will lighten like clouds. A true practitioner is not someone who abandons the world, but someone who knows how to live in the world with a tranquil mind. They don't need to escape. They just need to know how to transform. Every harsh word is a lesson. Every sadness is an opportunity to return to oneself. Practice letting go, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough not to let others control your mind. Forgiveness does not mean accepting wrongdoing, but choosing the path of peace for yourself. When our heart is clear, this world also becomes clear. When we are kind, life also becomes kind. Be like the great ocean that embraces 100 rivers and then becomes boundless. And if today someone is causing you suffering, remember this well. The one who hurts us is our teacher in patience. When you understand that, you will see that no one is truly deserving of anger. There are only those who are helping us to grow. Smile gently like the morning breeze and tell your heart, I choose tolerance. I choose compassion. I choose peace. Because in the end, all hatred dissolves. Only love remains. There are days when we feel tired, not because the world is too noisy, but because there's a voice inside us that refuses to be silent. That voice whispers that we must be better than others, that we must be recognized, that we cannot lose out. This voice, though small, is persistent, making our hearts always restless. People call this the ego. In Buddhism, the Buddha called it nga-chap, self-clinging. People often say it's easy to hold your head high, but difficult to bow humbly. Because when we hold our head high, we only see ourselves, but when we bow, we see the whole world. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, praised, and respected, the person who knows how to quietly stand back, who knows how to smile and yield, is the one with the strongest inner self. Once I heard a Zen master say, if you want to sit on a lotus throne, you must know how to stand in the mud. Mud is a dirty place, a place of challenges, of encountering hurt and arrogance. But without mud, how can there be a lotus? Humans are the same. If we don't go through moments of being humbled, if we don't experience falls, how can wisdom blossom? Today, we live in a society that constantly urges us to prove ourselves. People boast of achievements, boast of fame, even boast of their pain to gain recognition. But the more we try to prove ourselves, the more our hearts wither. Because the ego is like a full jar of water. If it's already full, nothing more can be poured in. But when we bow our heads and open our hearts, the water of understanding and love can find a place to enter. The story of Mr. Dung, a ceramic artisan in Bat Trong village, is a beautiful illustration. He was a talented man, famous throughout the region. His skill was so exquisite that everyone in the village praised him. But talent sometimes comes with arrogance. Mr. Dung would not listen to anyone's advice, always believing he was right, and that his work was perfect. Until one day, during the most important firing, the vase he had personally crafted, the masterpiece he called his spiritual child, cracked after being fired. He angrily smashed the vase, cursed the kiln, blamed the clay, and then sadly closed his workshop. He believed he had failed because fate was playing tricks on him. An old teacher in the village who had taught him the craft quietly came to visit. He looked at the broken ceramic shards on the floor and said, "Do you know? A cracked vase can still hold flowers, if only you know how to place it correctly." The words were as light as a breath, but enough to make Mr. Dung fall silent. He realized that what broke the vase was not fate, but the immense ego within him. He feared others' criticism, feared losing his reputation, feared his name as a talented artisan being tarnished. This very fear prevented him from seeing the beauty in imperfections. From then on, Mr. Dung learned to humble himself. He remade each pinch and curve, listening to every sound of the kiln. He no longer got angry when the clay cracked, but saw it as part of the transformation. Once, he displayed a cracked vase with a lotus branch placed in it. Everyone who came to see it marveled. They said that the crack itself gave the vase a soul. He just smiled. Because I have learned to let go of my ego, to see everything with humility. This story reminds us of the Buddha's teaching. The foolish person who thinks he is better than others is deluded. The wise person who knows he is not yet enough. That is wisdom. In this life, everyone has cracks in their soul, in their work, in their relationships. But if we keep trying to patch them with arrogance, they will only widen. Only when we learn to accept, to bow our heads, to see ourselves in our imperfections, can those cracks transform into light. Ego is the root of much suffering. When we think we are right, we immediately think others are wrong. When we think we are skilled, we disdain the weak. When we feel hurt, we refuse to forgive. All suffering in the world arises from this division, the division between I and other. The Buddha once taught that all suffering originates from clinging to the self. One who clings to the ego is like someone grasping a hot coal. The tighter they hold, the more they burn. But letting go is incredibly difficult, because letting go of the ego is not abandoning oneself, but understanding that one is not the center of the universe. When we realize we are just a small part of the flow of life, we feel much lighter. Remember that bowing your head does not mean weakness. Bowing your head is a manifestation of inner strength. Bowing to learn, bowing to listen, bowing to love. Bowing is how we see the sky more clearly in the hearts of others. Once, during a Dharma talk, a monk recounted, "Every time I bow my head, I come closer to liberation." Those words, seemingly simple, are profoundly deep. Bowing is not just an external action, but an internal transformation. It is daring to re-examine our own faults, daring to admit our imperfections, daring to set aside pride, to open our hearts to love. Some people suffer their entire lives over a single word that displeased them. Some lose loved ones over fame. Some lose their peace of mind over competition. But ultimately, when we close our eyes, do all those victories and losses still hold meaning? Only one precious thing remains: peace of mind. Many people think humility is about suffering a disadvantage, but in reality, humility is wisdom. The humble person wins without contending, is understood without speaking, and is naturally respected without arrogance. Why? Because that person has an inner calmness. The Buddha once said, "He who conquers himself is a greater hero than he who conquers 1,000 times 1,000 men on the battlefield." The self here is the ego, the pride, the habit of wanting to control everything according to one's own will. When we are no longer controlled by the ego, we naturally find everything to be favorable, even if the winds of life shift. The art of letting go of the ego is not a lesson for one day, but a lifelong journey. Every day, we have an opportunity to let go a little. When criticized by others, we can choose silence instead of reaction. When we see someone succeed, we can choose to congratulate them instead of being envious. When someone hurts us, we can choose forgiveness instead of resentment. Each small action like this is a time we train our humble mind. Practicing letting go of the ego begins with self-observation. Look deep into your mind to see when the ego arises, when your pride is touched, when you want to prove something, when you want to be right. Each time this happens, stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, if I don't speak, if I don't compete, what do I lose? Most often, the answer is nothing. What you lose is a little vanity, but what you gain is peace. In a lifetime, what we imagine to be most precious is the ego. But by the end of life, what we most wish to let go of is also the ego. The longer one lives, the more one realizes that the person who knows how to step back is the one who has gone further. The person who knows how to bow their head is the one who has risen highest. There is a beautiful image in Zen. When a leaf falls, it doesn't complain. It doesn't fear. It just quietly falls, merging with Mother Earth. Because of this, the next season, the tree is green again, and flowers bloom again. Humans are the same. When we know how to let go of the ego, we will be nourished by that very humility. Life is short. Don't waste it trying to prove you are better than anyone. Use that time to understand yourself, to love others, for only compassion can help us overcome all suffering. Letting go of the ego is not losing yourself. It is returning to your true self, pure, simple, and full of love. When the ego dissolves, our heart opens. When the heart opens, life naturally becomes more beautiful. Remember that it's easy to hold your head high, but difficult to bow humbly. Yet it is in that bowing that the light of wisdom shines. Every time we yield, we move closer to peace. Every time we know how to see, we take a step towards tranquility. And every time we let go of the ego, we expand our heart to love more fully. Therefore, if today you are sad, if you feel misunderstood, try to be silent and bow your head. Bow to see that your heart is already at peace. Bow to see that others are also hurting like you. Bow to see that everything will pass. When our heart is humble, suffering has no place to reside. Practice saying thank you more often, apologizing more easily, and forgiving more profoundly. Because life is not long enough for resentment to last. Each day, choose to humble yourself a little, love a little, and let go a little. One day, when you look back, you will realize that the most precious thing you gained was not fame, money, or praise, but a soul that knows how to bow. A soul no longer bound by ego. A soul light as a cloud, free amidst the current of life. And then you will smile ever so softly, because you will understand that you have learned the greatest art of human life, the art of letting go of the ego. In this life, perhaps each of us has experienced a moment of turmoil. Some feel their hearts shattered by the loss of a loved one. Others are entangled in confusion due to breakdowns, misunderstandings, or betrayals. Some wake up every morning feeling exhausted by overwhelming responsibilities and fears. Life is inherently like this, always changing, always uncertain. What we hold in our hands today may be completely different tomorrow. People often fear impermanence, for impermanence brings separation, loss, and suffering. But in truth, impermanence itself is life's greatest teacher. Ms. Thao, a 35-year-old woman, once could not believe she could get back on her feet after a tragic event. Her husband died in a traffic accident when their daughter was just 1 year old. That morning, she had seen him off at the door, reminding him to come home early for dinner with their child. But by afternoon, a call from the hospital plunged her into a bottomless pit. Everything collapsed in an instant. Their once warm home became empty. Every night, the wind whistling through the window sounded like someone calling her name. Ms. Tao sat before the altar, looking at her husband's photo, tears streaming down her face. She wondered why life was so unfair, why good people left so early. In the days that followed, she lived like a zombie. Everything at home piled up. Her young child needed care. Her elderly mother was frail and ill, but her heart had no life left. Many times, she thought of giving up, even wanting to abandon everything to escape the pain. But then, one morning, as she was sweeping the yard, she heard the chanting of sutras from her neighbor's house. The words of impermanence, impermanence, birth and death, impermanence, resounded steadily, light as a breath. She suddenly looked up at the garden where yellow petals drifted down in the morning sun. She stood still for a long time, and in that moment, tears fell again. But this time, not from despair, but from a profound realization. She thought, everything in life is like this. Flowers bloom, then wither, the moon waxes, then wanes, people come, then go. No one can hold on to anyone forever, and nothing lasts eternally. It's all just connections forming, then dissolving. Love doesn't disappear. It just changes form, becoming memories, becoming support in the heart. And in that moment, she felt her heart soften like a gentle breeze blowing after a rain. The Buddha once taught, when the mind has few desires, suffering naturally diminishes. When the mouth speaks few meaningless words, misfortune naturally disperses. These words, seemingly simple, are the essence of a free and easy life. Ms. Tao gradually realized that the greatest suffering of humans lies not in external losses, but in clinging internally. When we constantly want everything to go our way, when we refuse to accept that life is inherently impermanent, suffering naturally arises. Conversely, when we let go, when we learn to look at everything with a clear mind, then even loss becomes a lesson. And even separation transforms into peaceful remembrance. She began to practice sitting still every morning, breathing slowly. At first, her mind was still chaotic. Images of her husband and old days flooded back. But then she just sat quietly, not trying to chase them away, not trying to hold on to them. She let her emotions pass like water flowing through a stream. She listened to the birds singing, the leaves rustling, and even her own heartbeat. Day by day, the pain within her gradually subsided. She learned that mindfulness is not about dispelling sadness, but about accepting it, looking directly at it, and understanding that it, too, is impermanent. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, like a beautiful flower, full of color, but without fragrance, so are the well-spoken words of one who does not act accordingly. Humans are the same, living in this world, if we only know how to speak, but not to act, to demand, but not to give, to blame, but not to be tolerant, then suffering will never cease. After the tragedy, Ms. Tao realized that instead of dwelling on the past, she needed to live fully in the present. She focused on raising her child, growing vegetables, reading scriptures, chanting, and every evening lit incense for her departed husband. She no longer wished for grand things, only for her heart to find peace. One time her daughter asked, "Mommy, where's Daddy?" She smiled, stroked her daughter's head, and replied, "Daddy is in Mommy's and your heart." That simple answer contained a profound enlightenment, for she knew that the dead don't disappear. They just leave their physical bodies. But oh love, karmic connections and memories remain, like a wholesome seed in the consciousness. And precisely when she understood that, she no longer feared loss, nor did she cling too much to what she had. Living amidst impermanence, the hardest thing is not to understand, but to accept. Everyone knows life is impermanent, but how many have a calm heart when facing it? Only when the mind has few desires can we truly feel lightness. Desires here are not just about money and fame, but also about expectations, hopes, and the shoulds and musts we impose on ourselves. When we think others must understand us, must love us the way we want, when we think life must be fair, must go our way, we inadvertently create more suffering. But when we learn to relax, to see things as they are, without adding, without subtracting, without forcing, without resisting, only then are we truly free. One day, a friend asked Ms. Tao, "How are you so calm? After all those heart-wrenching things?" She smiled and said, "I wasn't calm right away. I also cried. I also complained. I also asked heaven why. But then I understood that some questions have no answers. I can only accept and live on, because the one who left surely wouldn't want to see me suffer forever." Her words were gentle, but touched deeply. Serenity is not indifference, but feeling enough and knowing when to stop. It's knowing that suffering is real, but that suffering is not an enemy, but a teacher. Thanks to suffering, we learn to love, to understand, to let go. Someone once asked, "Why does the Buddha say life is suffering, yet still advise us to love life?" Because it is precisely within suffering that we see the value of joy. If there were no night, how would we appreciate dawn? If we never lost, how would we cherish what we have? Observing flowers blooming, we see life. Watching the sun set, we see the way. Everything carries a lesson within it. Flowers teach us that beauty exists only when it knows when to bloom and wither at the right time. The sun teaches us that nothing shines brightly forever, but warmth always remains in the heart that knows how to feel. Ms. Tao began to live slower. Every morning she brewed a cup of tea, watched the mist dissolve outside her porch, listening to the sound of time passing without haste. She taught her daughter to say thank you, to bow her head in apology, to smile even if only a butterfly flew by. Some people think that living freely means escaping, distancing oneself from the world, retreating to the mountains to avoid life. But in reality, freedom is not abandoning life, but living amidst life with a peaceful heart. Ms. Tao still went to work, still faced many complexities, still had moments of sadness, sometimes even anger. But she did not let her mind be swept away. When she encountered someone doing wrong, she was not quick to blame. When she encountered someone thoughtless, she was not quick to be sad. She knew that everyone was learning their own lessons, and everyone had reasons for their actions. During a visit to the temple, she heard the abbot say, "A free person is one who understands that everything is due to cause and condition. When they come, welcome them. When they go, see them off. When you have, cherish it. When you lose, let go." Those words were like a key opening the last door in her heart. From then on, she no longer feared impermanence. She knew impermanence was the nature, the only certainty in life. Only when we resist it do we suffer. When we go along with it, we gain freedom. In the afternoon, she sat by the window, watching the sun slowly set on the tiled roof. She smiled, whispering to herself, "My dear husband, I am okay now. I haven't forgotten you, but I will live well." The wind gently rustled the branch of flowers outside the porch, like a reply. She understood that in this life, the only thing we can hold on to is how we face everything. Everything else will change sooner or later. People often say, when the mind is at peace, the scenery is also at peace. It's true. It's not that life has to be perfect for us to be happy. Rather, it's when we stop demanding that we find everything is already sufficient. Ms. Tao no longer sought much, no longer compared, no longer complained. She was grateful for every day she lived, every breath, every ordinary moment. In the morning, she gave thanks for being able to open her eyes and see the light. In the evening, she gave thanks for being able to lie peacefully in her small home. When the mind has few desires, suffering naturally diminishes. When the mind has less craving, we are less dragged along by life. When the mouth speaks few meaningless words, we avoid many disputes. Peace is not external, but in how we think, how we live. Many people suffer not because they are poor, but because their hearts do not know what is enough. Some have a lot, but are always afraid of losing, so they are never at peace. Some have very little, but always smile because they feel they have enough. Ms. Tao, who is here with us, is the latter. She recounted that once, as she was washing dishes, her daughter accidentally broke a ceramic vase that she cherished. Before, she would have scolded her daughter for the loss, but that day, she just said, "It's okay, as long as you're not hurt." She looked at the broken shards and suddenly remembered the saying, "Salt in a cup is salty. Salt in a lake is diluted." If our mind is small, every issue becomes serious. But when our mind is expansive, small matters are no longer worth bothering about. A wise person is not someone who doesn't encounter suffering, but someone who knows how to smile in the midst of it. Living freely does not mean not crying, but knowing how to wipe away tears and continue on. It's knowing that even if the wind blows, flowers still bloom. Even if it rains, the heart still shines. When she understood this, Ms. Tao felt life become lighter. One morning, she visited her husband's grave, carrying a bouquet of white flowers. She no longer cried like before. She sat down and chatted with him like an old friend. She talked about how their daughter was doing better in school, how her mother was healthy, how she was no longer afraid. She said, "I know you are still out there, somewhere, just in a different form. I know impermanence is the norm. I have learned how to live amidst impermanence with a mind no longer agitated." From then on, she lived as lightly as a flying cloud. She no longer complained about if only or asked why. She simply lived each moment fully. Whenever anyone asked her secret, she would just smile. Life is like a river. The more you resist it, the more tired you become. Just let it flow, and you will see the water clear. Living freely is like that, amidst changes, still keeping the mind clear. It's knowing that happiness isn't at the end of the road, but right in the present step. It's understanding that people who come are due to karmic connection, and people who leave are due to karmic debt. Whatever happens is to teach us how to grow. If one day you feel weary, stop, breathe deeply, and look up at the sky. Remember the Buddha's teaching? Everything will pass. Only a tranquil mind can lead us to peace. When we know how to stop, how to see, how to feel, our heart will naturally lighten. Believe that no pain lasts forever. Just as rain doesn't fall all day, and night doesn't last until morning. All suffering, if we know how to accept it with compassion and wisdom, will turn into light. Life is impermanent, but the human heart can be at peace. Live simply. Live slowly. Be grateful for every small thing. Smile at today, because tomorrow hasn't arrived. Love yourself, because no one can live your life for you. And when you have learned to live like that, when your mind is no longer swept away by gain or loss, right or wrong, winning or losing, when you can look at a blooming flower and see life, gaze at the setting sun, and see the way, then you have truly lived freely amidst impermanence. In this life, perhaps all of us have, at some point, gone through days of quiet contemplation, days when joy isn't enough to chase away all sorrow, and sorrow isn't enough to completely extinguish the spark within our hearts. We still live, still breathe, still walk amidst the myriad shades of human emotion. Some mornings, you open your eyes and feel lighthearted. There are also afternoons when just a small rain is enough to make you feel down, suddenly feeling empty, feeling lonely. That's life, joy and sorrow intertwined, suffering mixed with happiness. Someone once asked, why did the Buddha teach us to let go, but not to eliminate all sadness? Because if there were no sadness, how would we understand the value of joy? If we were never lonely, how would we appreciate a hand holding ours? If we never got lost, how would we cherish a bright path? Life is inherently a balance between these two extremes, like night and day, like yin and yang, like the moon waning, then waxing full again. Mr. Kwan, a street musician, understood this deeply. He lived by singing, traveling through various streets, holding an old guitar, singing for strangers, singing for himself. His life was not easy. Some rainy days, no one would stop to drop a few coins into his small tin box. Some evenings, he would sit huddled under a cafe awning, watching people pass by, feeling lost. He used to think his life was truly sad. No home, no place to belong, no one waiting for him. But then he would tell himself, If there were no sadness, he would never have appreciated joy. He recounted that every time it rained, he felt his heart soften. Under the rain, his guitar music would resonate slowly. Each lyric sounded like a heartfelt confession. Some passers-by would stop, listen for a few minutes, then move on. But some would stand for a long time, looking at him with eyes of compassion. It was in moments like these that he felt joy. Though small, it was true joy. He said, just enough sadness to see life deeply, just enough joy for the heart to be grateful. Those words sound light, but they contain an entire philosophy of life. The Buddha taught that the human mind is like the surface of a lake. When the wind blows strongly, the water ripples, and the reflection becomes blurry. When the wind is still and the water clear, we can clearly see the sky. Our emotions are the same. When we are too sad, we lose our light. When we are too happy, we easily forget ourselves. Only when we know balance, know when to stop at the right moment, can we truly see our own mind clearly. Sadness is not wrong, nor is joy wrong. It's only when we cling to one of them, when we let emotions lead us and forget mindfulness, when we let joy make us complacent or let sadness cloud our wisdom, then suffering arises. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha spoke of suffering and the path to its cessation. He did not tell us to eliminate suffering, but to understand suffering to overcome it. Because of understanding, we don't blame. Because of knowing, we don't torment ourselves. Mr. Kwan learned this in his own way. Once, someone asked him, "Don't you get sad singing all the time and not getting famous?" He smiled, his eyes calm. "I don't sing to be famous. I sing to live, to breathe, to hear my own heart's voice." He said his singing was his friend, a place to confide his sorrows, and also a place to find joy again. When he sang, he forgot everything. There was only his breath and the sound. That was mindfulness in every moment. In life, many people do not find peace, not because they lack something, but because they want too much. They want to be loved, praised, recognized. But the more they want, the more restless their hearts become. The Buddha taught that one who knows enough, though lying on the ground, still finds peace. One who does not know enough, though in heaven, finds no contentment. This teaching speaks not only of material things, but also of emotions. When we are content with the joy we have, sadness also becomes gentle. When we know when to stop, know how to smile at simple things, then even if life is not perfect, our hearts still feel complete. Mr. Kwan recounted that some nights he would sleep under an awning, hugging his guitar as a pillow, listening to the rain fall. He felt warm because he still had a place to shelter, still had a song to sing. He said people often get sad because they keep looking up and forget to look down. Some people don't even have a coat to shelter them from the rain. So, knowing what's enough is not poverty, but wisdom. Someone asked what it means to have enough joy. It means being able to smile, even if today isn't perfect. It means feeling happy because you can still do what you love. It means being grateful for still having a chance to correct mistakes. And just enough sadness means still being able to pause before the suffering of others. When our hearts haven't turned to stone, when tears still fall out of compassion. Sadness is like salt. Too much makes it bitter, but without it, life would be bland. Just as salt in a glass is strong, salt in a lake is diluted, so are troubles. When our heart is small, sadness takes up all the space. When our heart is expansive, sadness is just a ripple on the surface of the lake. Therefore, what is needed is not to erase sadness, but to open our hearts and give it space to dissolve. When we open our hearts, we no longer suffer from sadness, but sadness becomes a beautiful part of being human. Another time, Mr. Kwan was invited to perform at a small cafe. After the show, a young woman came to thank him for a song that made her cry. She said she was feeling lost, and his song made her feel alive. He just smiled and said, "Perhaps my sadness touched your sadness. When two sorrows meet, light naturally appears." This might sound simple, but it is actually how compassion is born. When we accept our own sadness, we can empathize with others. When we stop blaming ourselves for being weak, we can be gentle with the pain of others. And it is this understanding that is the greatest healing energy. The Buddha once taught, "A tranquil mind brings peace to all things." This means that when our mind is calm, even if there's a storm outside, we still find peace. But when our mind is agitated, even if the scenery is beautiful, our heart still feels wetland. Emotions are like the weather. We can't avoid rain and wind, but we can learn to shelter ourselves with the cloak of mindfulness. Sometimes we think we're happy, but it's the happiness of fleeting excitement when praised, when we're better than others. And sometimes we think we're sad, but it's the sadness of unfulfilled craving. When we look deeply into that, we realize that both joy and sadness are not real. They come and go. They are just waves rising on the water of the mind. Only a clear mind, a mind that knows how to stop, can find peace. Mr. Kwan recounted that once he sang for an elderly lottery vendor. The old woman cried, and he cried with her. But afterward, they both laughed. He said, perhaps those tears were to cleanse the dust from their hearts. Then he said that without sadness, people would never know true love. It's in sadness that we understand the feeling of loss, and thus learn to cherish what we have more. Living in this world, the difficulty is not avoiding suffering, but maintaining a balanced heart. A balanced person is someone who knows how to listen to themselves. When sad, they don't run away. When happy, they don't get carried away. When successful, they are not arrogant. When they fail, they don't resent. They know how to stand in the middle, not leaning to one side. That is mindfulness in life. The Buddha taught that concerning gain and loss, choose peace. For gain will turn to loss, and loss will turn to gain. Both are two sides of a coin called cause and condition. What remains after everything is not success or failure, but whether we have preserved the purity of our own mind. To live is for oneself, without shame in one's heart. That is enough. Mr. Kwan once had the opportunity to go far with a big band, but he refused. He said he didn't want to trade peace for glamour. He chose to continue singing simple yet free street songs. For him, happiness was not in how many people listened, but in being himself. He said each time he sang, it was as if he lived another life, a life of sound, of emotion, of connection between people. Similarly, each of us is singing the song of our life. There are joyful parts, melancholic parts, moments of high notes, and moments of silence. No one can sing our song for us, and no one fully understands our heart. Therefore, live so that when you look back, you have no regrets. Do what you believe is right. Speak sincerely. Live simply and kindly. That is enough. Joy and sadness are just two wings of the same door. When we open our hearts, both lead us to growth. Don't fear sadness, because sadness helps us understand ourselves. Don't chase joy, because too much joy can make us forget our way home. Stand in the middle. Take a deep breath. Feel life flowing through every moment. That is wholesome. That is mindfulness. That is knowing how to live. Every choice today is tomorrow's destiny. If today we choose peace, tomorrow we will find tranquility. If today we choose anger, tomorrow will be full of suffering. Life is like that. No one escapes cause and effect. Sow seeds of gratitude, tolerance, and understanding in your mind. Then, one day, when you look back, you will realize that joy and sadness are just two companions who accompany you through long journeys. Finally, when you have experienced enough, you will realize that happiness is not the absence of sadness, but knowing how to smile amidst sadness. It is not the absence of suffering, but knowing how to find peace within suffering. It is not always being happy, but being grateful even for the days that are not joyful. Because only with sadness do we know what joy is. Only with loss do we understand value. Only by going through darkness do we appreciate dawn. Life does not need too much joy, just enough to warm our hearts. Nor does it need too little sadness, just enough to remind us that we still know how to love. And when we know how to stop, know what's enough, know gratitude, then no matter what happens in the world outside, our hearts will remain at peace. Remember that living without shame in your heart is enough. When the heart is upright, life naturally brightens. When the mind is at peace, the scenery naturally heals. Just enough joy to see life as beautiful. Just enough sadness to make the heart deep. That is enough for one human life. That afternoon, the sky was a pale crimson. In the small kitchen of a house at the end of a quiet street, Mr. Trong had just returned after a long day at the office. Mrs. Mai was cooking dinner, and little An sat at the table, her eyes fixed on her father's phone. Bowls and chopsticks were already set. Food emitted a fragrant aroma, but the atmosphere was so silent, you could clearly hear the clock ticking on the wall. Each person was busy in their own world. Mrs. Mai was quiet. Mr. Trong was tired. Little An hesitated, looking at the two adults, but not daring to say a word. When the rice had cooled a bit, little An softly spoke, her voice childish, yet sad. "Dad, Mom, why don't we talk to each other when we eat dinner anymore? I just want us to eat together, happily, like before." Her small words touched both husband and wife deeply. Mr. Trong looked up, his eyes suddenly awakening. Mrs. Mai was silent for a few seconds, then smiled. A gentle smile, but full of understanding. He put his phone down. She added a piece of fish to their daughter's bowl. Little An cheered up, her face visibly brightening. In that moment, the entire kitchen seemed to light up, not by the lamp, but by the warmth of love. That dinner became a new beginning. From then on, they gradually adopted the habit of eating dinner without phones. They looked at each other, listened to each other, and shared the small details of their day. They might still be tired, there might still be disagreements, but they began to relearn how to live together through listening and gratitude. Life never takes away our joy. Sometimes it's just that we forget how to touch that joy. People are so busy, they don't have time to look up and see their loved ones, don't have time to listen to their child's heart, and no longer realize that happiness often lies simply in a humble dinner, in a handhold, or in the smile of the person next to them. The Buddha taught that the mind is the master of the house. The body is merely a tool. When the mind is clear, life is peaceful. When the mind is agitated, life is chaotic. When we face our loved ones, if our hearts are still hot with anger, our words easily turn into daggers. If our hearts are full of love, our eyes become a cool spring. The art of dealing with others in life is not really about learning skillful speech, but about learning to keep our mind calm in all situations. A person who interacts skillfully is not because they speak well, but because they have an understanding heart. They know how to look deeply into others' emotions, know how to put themselves in the other person's shoes to empathize. When we understand that everyone has their own suffering, we will complain less, judge less. When we understand that everyone yearns to be heard, we will speak less, argue less, and be more silent to listen deeply. In the relationship between parents and children, sometimes what a child needs is not advice, but a hug. Not discipline, but acceptance. Children are inherently very sensitive. They don't listen to long lectures, but sense the energy from eyes and voices. If adults speak with anger, even if their words are right, the child will still feel hurt. If adults speak with love, even if their advice is strict, the child will still feel safe. Mrs. Mai once recounted that her daughter, An, accidentally broke a ceramic vase that Mrs. Mai cherished. At that moment, Mrs. Mai was about to scold her, but seeing her daughter's frightened face, her heart suddenly softened. She just breathed lightly and said, "Are you hurt? Remember to be more careful next time, okay?" That evening, little An ran to hug her mother and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'll be more careful." That apology was not forced, but came from understanding. That is the power of compassion. Dealing with children is the first lesson for us to learn about ourselves. Because every child is a mirror reflecting the parent's mind. When we are angry, the child will be afraid. When we are agitated, the child will withdraw. When we are at peace, the child naturally feels safe. A peaceful family is not one without storms, but one where everyone knows how to turn back, how to reflect, how to let go of their ego, to listen to each other. Similarly, in marital relationships, interactions are not about who is right or wrong, but about who knows how to yield, who knows how to listen. Many people live together their whole lives, but never truly understand each other. Because every time they are angry, they turn their backs. Every time they are sad, they go silent. And every time they are hurt, they withdraw into themselves. But if we are willing to listen, we will realize that behind anger is the fear of abandonment. Behind criticism is the longing to be cared for. Understanding that we won't need to win arguments. Simply having enough love is enough. The Buddha once taught, He who conquers another in battle is only a winner for a moment, but he who conquers himself is the greatest winner. Winning here is not about triumph or defeat, but about conquering anger, conquering the ego's desire to be right, conquering the hostile mind that burns away our own peace. One evening, after little An went to bed, Mr. Trong sat silently in the yard. The wind blew softly. The scent of milk flowers wafted by. He remembered all the times he had been angry with his wife over trivial matters, all the times he had been silent during dinner, making the house feel cold. He realized that no one in the family was causing him suffering. It was his own mind, full of worries, that made everything feel heavy. When a person's mind is full of tension, every small sound becomes noise. Every glance becomes a thorn. But when the mind is at ease, every small thing becomes as light as a cloud. The next morning, he proactively washed the dishes and made tea for his wife. Mrs. Mai looked at him and smiled gently, saying nothing. Her eyes were strangely warm. Little An ran over, chirping excitedly about school. The whole family burst into laughter, and he suddenly realized that peace was not far away. It was just in the moment he was willing to open his heart. Skillful interaction is not about using flowery words, but about using a sincere heart. Sincere people's words carry weight because they come from a good heart. Those who know how to listen speak less, but their words easily enter the heart because they speak with empathy. Life often doesn't require us to be clever. It just requires us to know when to stop before hurting someone. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that there is no fire like the fire of anger, and no fault as great as delusion. Anger makes words like knives, while delusion makes us forget our own pure nature. When we know how to stop and breathe, how to listen, that is when we are preserving peace for ourselves and for others. Someone once asked a Zen master, "How can one live in harmony with others?" The Zen master just smiled. "Listen as if you have never heard before. See as if you have never seen before." This means looking at people with fresh eyes, not through old memories. When we carry preconceptions, we only see others through our own lens. When we let go of preconceptions, we can see the inherent goodness in them. In life, we meet many types of people. Those who are hot-tempered, those who are gentle, those who are easily emotional, those who are quiet. Each person carries a story, a wound, a suffering. If we only look at actions, we will easily judge. But if we are willing to look deeply, we will see that behind every behavior, there is a reason. Rude people are often those who have been hurt. People who often speak harshly are often those who haven't learned how to express themselves. When we understand, we will feel compassion. When we feel compassion, we will know how to interact. Interacting with strangers requires patience. Interacting with loved ones requires tolerance. Interacting with oneself requires honesty. We often find it easy to forgive strangers, but are harsh with those closest to us. Easy to smile at friends, but frown at family members. Thus, happiness is often not far away. It's simply a matter of knowing how to redirect our hearts. Remember that words are never just words. They carry energy. A timely word of comfort can save someone from despair. A thoughtless word of blame can make someone close their heart forever. So before speaking, take a deep breath. Ask your heart, do these words truly need to be said? Will these words hurt the other person? If unsure, choose silence. Silence with understanding is the most noble way of interacting. The Buddha taught that knowing when to stop is wisdom. Knowing how to listen is compassion. A person who lives by wisdom and compassion finds peace everywhere and can harmonize with everyone. When we listen to others, not to refute them, but to understand them, our hearts also open wider. When we say something, not to prove we are right, but to help others feel lighter, then those words become a blessing. Life is a great school, and every day is a lesson in how to treat others. Some teach us with yui, some teach us with pain. Those who hurt us are actually helping us learn the lesson of forgiveness. Those who cause us vexation are giving us an opportunity to look at ourselves. No one in our lives is meaningless. It's only whether we are willing to learn from them or not. And most importantly, know how to interact with yourself. Don't just focus on your outward appearance and forget that inside you are weary. Take time to sit still, breathe slowly, and listen to your mind. When you know how to dialogue with yourself, you will understand why you are sad, why you are angry, why you are tired. Once you understand the root cause, you will know how to heal yourself. No one but you can give you peace if you yourself are unwilling to open your heart. On some rainy days, allow yourself to rest. When tired, allow yourself not to push on. When things don't go as planned, remind yourself that life is just like that. As long as the mind is without resentment, the heart without anger, then even if there is a storm outside, within there is still peace. Remember this: when the mind is at peace, words naturally become skillful, actions naturally become right. Those around you become harmonious. The mind is the master of the house. The body is merely a tool. If the mind is agitated, the house will be as if on fire. If the mind is clear, the house will become a peaceful dwelling. Therefore, to interact well with life, one must first learn to care for one's own mind. In the evening after dinner, Mr. Trong and Mrs. Mai sat with little An, reading stories. The soft lamplight illuminated the three faces. Little An giggled. Mr. Trong looked at his child, his heart light as a cloud. He suddenly understood that happiness is actually very simple. One only needs to know how to stop, how to listen, how to love. That is enough. Life is never perfect, but we can live fully in every small moment. Whenever you are sad, remember that family dinner where a child reminded her parents to relearn how to listen to each other. When we know how to see with a loving heart, speak with a benevolent heart, and live with sincerity, then all interactions become beautiful. Keep your heart pure, live sincerely, and peace will naturally follow. Have you ever sat alone in a quiet room, yet felt an emptiness within your heart? Even with a stable job, a home, and loved ones by your side, your heart still feels incomplete, lacking a joy, a peace, something you can't even name. People are strange. The more they have, the more they feel it's not enough. The more they strive to seek, the more they lose the joy that was already right beside them. Some people spend their entire lives searching for happiness, yet fail to realize that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. It's not when you have a lot of money, a lot of loved ones, status, and fame, but when you can smile amidst the most ordinary things. The Buddha taught that suffering is caused by craving. Craving is not just a desire for material things, but also a desire for praise, for love, for understanding, for being superior to others. The more craving, the more restless the mind. And when the mind is restless, even amidst a myriad of good things, we still feel suffering. I want to tell you a small story. It's about Mrs. Q. Men, who lives in the suburbs of a small town. Every day, she wakes up before the sun rises. She goes to the garden to water a few pots of lush green water spinach, then gathers some old leaves to cook soup. Her meals are so simple that anyone who hears about them feels sympathy. Just a plate of boiled vegetables, a bowl of soy sauce, sometimes a little pickled cucumber she made herself. Yet, strangely, a smile always radiates from her face. A gentle, deep, and light smile, like the morning dew. Someone asked her, "Don't you suffer? Eating just vegetables and rice all the time, how can you be happy?" She just smiled. "What suffering, child? Having good health? Having the sunlight? Having a full meal? That's a blessing already." Hearing that, some people burst into tears, realizing that for so many years they had been chasing after things, never once stopping to be grateful. Happiness, it turns out, is not far away, nor is it bestowed by others. It is in the way we look at life. Some eat luxurious food and still suffer. Some eat water spinach with soy sauce and feel peaceful and happy. Because happiness is not in what we have, but in how we perceive it. When we live with a mind that knows enough, the heart naturally becomes light. But when we constantly pursue, it's like chasing our shadow in the sun. The more we chase, the more tired and distant we become. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is our clinging to impermanence. We constantly want to hold on to what cannot be held. We fear losing our loved ones, fear losing fame, fear losing possessions, fear losing youth, fear losing status. But loss is inevitable. All things arise and cease according to conditions. Where there is meeting, there must be parting. When we understand this, the heart stops fearing. When we are no longer afraid, peace naturally manifests. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once said, "He who is content, though he lies on the ground, is truly happy. The discontented, though in heaven, are never satisfied." Those words are short, but contain a lifetime of wisdom. Because knowing enough is the foundation of happiness. A person who knows enough is not dragged along by life, does not let their mind be controlled by craving. They live simply, but their heart is rich. But a person who does not know enough, even with a treasure of gold and silver, still feels deprived and suffers. Because the lack is in the mind, not in external things. Once I met a middle-aged man at a meditation retreat. He used to be the director of a large company, with meetings, phone calls, and pressure every day. Even with money, cars, and status, he suffered from insomnia every night. He said, "I'm scared. Scared of losing everything. Scared that tomorrow the company would lose money. Scared that people would forget him. Scared that no one would respect him anymore." When he attended the meditation retreat, he realized that for so many years he had been living like a person in chains. Those chains were not imposed by anyone, but self-imposed by his own mind. He said that after leaving his job, and living a simpler life, no longer competing. He felt strangely light and happy. Now I just need a cup of tea, a quiet morning, and a small book. That's enough. Everything else, if it comes, fine. If not, it doesn't matter. Hearing that, I remembered the image of Mrs. Q Men. 2 people, 2 lives, but meeting at one point, knowing enough. Knowing enough is not laziness, abandoning everything, but knowing the boundary between enough and excess. Excess makes the heart restless. Enough makes the heart peaceful. Excess makes us compare. Enough makes us grateful. In modern society, we are easily drawn into the spiral of must have more, must have a bigger house, a nicer car, a better job, smarter children than others. We forget that comparison is the root of unhappiness, because each person is born with different karmic connections, karma and blessings. Comparing ourselves only brings suffering. It's like looking up at the sky and seeing people fly, forgetting that our own feet were born to walk. A person who knows enough is someone who cherishes those feet, knows how to smile as they walk their own path. The Buddha once taught that the wise person who rejoices when others are superior to them has a great heart. The foolish person who grieves when others are superior to them harms themselves. When our heart knows how to rejoice in the happiness of others, we no longer suffer from comparison. When we are grateful for what we have, we no longer suffer from lack. Happiness begins with internal transformation. When the mind changes, circumstances also change. When we look at life with compassionate eyes, life naturally becomes lighter. One afternoon, I visited Mrs. Q Men. She was sitting on her porch, picking withered leaves from a small, potted flower. The late afternoon sun shone on her wrinkled but kind face. I asked her if she ever felt sad living alone like that. She replied, "Sad? Yes, but sadness is also a friend. On rainy days, I sit and listen to the rain, remember my departed loved ones, and recite the Buddha's name. I talk to them in my mind, and then feel my heart lighten. The dead are like fallen leaves. When their connection ends, they go. Those of us who are still alive must know how to be happy and grateful." She spoke and smiled. That smile seemed to dissipate all worries. I suddenly understood that some people don't learn the Dharma from books, but live by the Dharma in their hearts. In this life, no one is without suffering. But the difference is that some resist suffering, while others embrace it and smile. When we accept suffering, suffering transforms into a lesson. When we run from suffering, suffering turns into chains. Happiness does not come from eliminating suffering, but from knowing how to go through it in peace. Like a boatman rowing through the waves, not fearing the waves, but learning how to balance. When our mind is at peace, all storms become gentle. Once a Zen master said, "Salt in a cup is salty. Salt in a lake is diluted." Troubles are the same. If our heart is small, suffering drowns us. If our heart is expansive, suffering is just a small ripple. I always remember that saying, because knowing enough is also about opening our hearts. When we no longer cling to what is missing or what we haven't achieved, everything becomes as light as a drifting cloud. But when we cling, even a small breeze is enough to make our hearts waver. So when you feel suffering, try to stop, take a deep breath, and look around. Perhaps you still have your health. Perhaps you still have loved ones. Perhaps you still have a home, a meal. All these seemingly small things are what some people wish for and never get. So don't take ordinary things for granted, because they are the foundation of peace and joy. Someone asked me how to know if one is happy. I answered, when you can smile without a reason, when you feel your heart at peace without needing comfort from anyone, that is happiness. Happiness doesn't need much. Happiness is opening your eyes in the morning, seeing that you are still breathing, seeing sunlight shining through the curtains, hearing birds singing in the yard. It's coming home from work, and someone asks, "Have you eaten yet?" It's your mother still calling to remind you to dress warmly when you go out. It's sitting down for a meal with your family, hearing laughter echo amidst the smell of freshly cooked rice. These simple things, one day when they are gone, only then do we realize they were blessings. But why wait until we lose them to cherish them? Why not learn to be grateful right now? In Buddhism, there's a term called Tui Duyen Song, living in accordance with conditions. It doesn't mean passively giving up, but knowing how to flow with what comes, not grasping, not complaining. A person who knows how to live in accordance with conditions, even when encountering suffering, finds peace. Even when encountering joy, maintains a calm heart. They know that everything is a coming together of conditions, and then a falling apart of conditions. If they maintain that state of mind, then even amidst the noisy world, they have a temple in their heart. That temple doesn't need golden walls or tiled roofs, but it's a place where the mind stops, where we listen to ourselves, where we realize everything can be let go. When the heart knows what's enough, life will have less suffering. When the heart knows gratitude, life will have much peace. When the heart knows how to let go, life will be light as a cloud. What is called happiness, in truth, is not something we have to seek, but something we have to recognize. Recognize that in this present moment, we already have so many precious things. Recognize that every breath, every moment we are alive, is a gift. If today you are feeling sad, feeling weary, remember Mrs. Q Men's words. Having good health, having the sunlight, having a full meal, that's a blessing already. Let those words soak into your heart like a gentle sutra. Let your mind stop wishing for distant things and return to your breath, to your smile, to the present. Then you will see that happiness has never left you. It's just waiting for you to stop and recognize it. Big problems become small. Small problems become nothing. Our heart is vast as the ocean, and life naturally finds peace. Perhaps each of us has, at some point, fallen into moments of sadness and suffering so profound that we felt we couldn't get back up. Some suffer for love, because the one they loved turned their back and left. Some suffer for work, striving endlessly without seeing results. Some suffer for family due to misunderstandings, due to thoughtless words that hurt each other. And some suffer for themselves because their mind is restless, fearful, unable to find a place to rest. If you look closely at this life, everyone carries some kind of burden on their shoulders. Some burdens are clearly visible, some are deep in the heart, unexpressed, yet still heavy. But then there's something the Buddha once taught. All suffering is merely a passing cloud. These words, seemingly simple, contain a profound wisdom. Suffering is not for us to avoid, but for us to understand and then move through. For like clouds, suffering comes and goes. It's just that when we are in the midst of the rain, we imagine it will never stop. But when we learn to look up at the boundless sky, we will see that no matter how dark the clouds are, they are only temporary. The sky is still there, the blue is still there, and the light has never vanished. People are often surrounded by suffering because we forget one thing. All things are impermanent. Impermanence is not meant to make us fear, but to make us appreciate, because everything changes. Every moment is precious. If happiness is a flower, then impermanence is the breeze that makes us love the flower more before it withers. When we understand impermanence, we will no longer fear loss excessively. When we know that suffering will also pass, we will no longer be submerged by it. The Buddha once taught that there are 4 immutable truths in life. The 4 noble truths: suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to the cessation of suffering. That life has suffering is true, but suffering has a cause, can be ended, and there is a path to end suffering. That path is the middle way that the Buddha discovered. After years of asceticism, he had experienced both extremes, living in indulgence and extreme self-mortification. But in the end, he realized that happiness lies neither in chasing pleasure nor in tormenting the body. Happiness is when the mind is balanced, when we know how to walk through life with a clear mind, knowing how to let go without being indifferent, knowing how to love without attachment. The middle way is not just the Buddha's path, but the path for all of us. If you want to live peacefully on days when you feel sad, remember that suffering is only a part of the journey, not the end. Sit still, take a deep breath, and ask your heart, what am I suffering for? Am I suffering because others are not as I wish? Or am I suffering because I am trying to hold on to what cannot be held? When you can look directly at that suffering, you will see it gradually dissipate. Because suffering can only exist when you refuse to acknowledge it. Just as darkness remains only when you haven't opened the door to welcome the light. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is ignorance. Ignorance is not stupidity, but the inability to see the true nature of things. We suffer because we mistakenly believe that everything will remain the same. We think that person will always love us. We think fame will always follow us. We think this body will always be healthy. But no, everything changes. Understanding this, we will no longer blame life, blame others, blame ourselves. We will just quietly smile, accept, and move on. Try to practice 3 things that the Buddha taught. The first, deeply believe in cause and effect. Because when we believe in cause and effect, we understand that nothing happens without reason. Every suffering, every joy is the result of some karmic connection. Today, we suffer not to complain, but to understand that it is the fruit of past seeds, an opportunity for us to repay, to learn, to let go. When we understand cause and effect, we no longer see injustice, only karmic connections. And when we see karmic connections, our heart suffers less. The second, keep the mind clear and live kindly. In life, sometimes we cannot choose our circumstances, but we can choose how to live. Others may treat us badly, but we can still choose to be kind. Life may not be fair, but we can still choose to be gentle. Because kindness is the light that guides us through the long night of suffering. When we sow kindness, we save ourselves before saving others. Because a kind heart makes the mind light, and a light mind leaves no room for suffering. The third, return to your breath. Smile to see that you are alive. Many people live and forget that they are breathing. Every breath is a gift. Every breath is an opportunity to return to oneself. When we breathe in deeply, feeling the air enter our lungs, we will feel our heart become still. When we breathe out, releasing all worries, we will feel ourselves being reborn in every moment. The Buddha once taught, "In the stream of life, live like a lotus flower, growing in mud, but unstained by it." To hold on to your breath, to hold on to your smile, is to hold on to that lotus heart. Many people ask how to stop suffering. In reality, suffering cannot completely disappear, but we can learn to live peacefully in the midst of it. Because this life is like a long dream. All gains and losses, wins and losses, are only temporary. Just like when we dream, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad in the dream. But when we wake up, we realize it was all just an illusion. Life is the same. People come, people go. There is laughter, there are tears. But after all, what remains is what our mind has learned. How much it has loved, how much it has let go. When we understand that life is a dream, we no longer suffer too much from what is happening. We live, we work, we love. But our hearts are no longer attached. We are happy without being intoxicated, but without collapsing. We understand that everything is merely karmic connections forming and then dissolving, like bubbles merging into the sea. And in that dissolution, we see another life arise. With each suffering that passes, we grow a little more, become a little clearer, a little more compassionate. Peace is not escaping life, but knowing how to live amidst life with a calm heart. It is being able to smile when others speak harshly, being able to remain calm when things don't go as planned, being able to be silent when storms pass. Because a peaceful person doesn't need life to be calm. They only need their mind to be still, just like the surface of a lake. Only when the water stops moving can it reflect the clear sky. When the mind is still, we can see the true nature of everything. See that suffering is also a part of the path back to ourselves. Therefore, when you are sad and suffering, don't try to chase it away. Listen to it. Let suffering tell you what needs healing in your heart. Perhaps it's an old wound. Perhaps it's a regret. Perhaps it's a fear that hasn't been released. Embrace it with your breath, with understanding, with compassion. When you embrace suffering, suffering will dissipate. When you run away, suffering will follow. So stop, breathe, smile, and accept. One day you will realize that suffering is also a teacher. It teaches us humility, appreciation, and love. Thanks to suffering, we know the value of peace and joy. Thanks to loss, we understand the depth of gratitude. Thanks to separation, we learn how to love without attachment. Thanks to storms, we realize the strength of our resolve. And then you will see that this life is no longer frightening. Because even in a dream, we can be at peace. Even amidst impermanence, we can smile. Even amidst suffering, we can love. When the temple bell rings, let its sound resonate within your heart. Each bell chime is a reminder. Awaken. Awaken from the delusion of craving, aversion, and ignorance. Awaken to see that life is inherently beautiful. If we are willing to look with eyes of compassion, may those who hear these words find their minds peaceful and light, their wisdom clear, and their hearts full of compassion. May every breath you take be a prayer for yourself and for all sentient beings. May every smile you offer be a small flower blossoming in the garden of life, so that from it happiness may spread gently as clouds, shine brightly as the sun, and endure as the boundless compassion of the Buddha.